The Nazis, led by the intelligence service of the SS in cahoots with high-level experts, stole gold from the gold reserves of countries they conquered as the Allied forces zoned in on the Axis powers. The German soldiers tried to keep this hidden loot a secret, but several eyewitnesses claimed to have seen the SS officers dumping sealed boxes into Lake Toplelets. Some believe these boxes were filled with top-secret documents and artifacts, while others believe they were filled with gold. During World War II, Hitler and his cronies plundered Europe for all it was worth, including currency from invaded countries or artwork from such countries. Hitler was most interested in gold bars, as they were not subject to the whim of the market like foreign currency. It is estimated that Hitler was able to steal about $500 million from countries like Czechoslovakia, France, Belgium, Hungary, and Italy, a figure that is worth over $36 billion today. The Swiss banks in Zurich continued to collaborate with the German soldiers until the last days of the war, when they were forced to surrender. Hitler and his cronies cooked up plans to hide their stolen loot, but the Americans tried to intercept such plans. When they entered the town of Merkers on April 4, 1945, they started to move things to move treasures underground and mountain deposits. They were able to salvage a vast haul of about 8,000 gold bars among foreign currencies and valuable works of art in the German town, worth about $240 million. The German soldiers were able to move some of their stolen loot to Austria, which was revealed to be done by mobilizing freight trains south to the Salzkammer Gut. High-ranking officers like Ernst Colton Brunner tried to use his stolen loot to negotiate his own separate treaty with the Americans, but when that failed, he fled, leaving behind his gold reserves to be discovered by the Americans buried in the garden of his villa at Lake Toplelets. This discovery became popular in the area over time, with the most popular location for this stashed, wavy gold being Lake Toplitz. Lake Toplitz was a popular destination among the Germans during World War II, with Josef Goebbels, the infamous minister of propaganda for the German military, having a holiday home nearby. The lake was also used for naval experiments and was considered the perfect place to sink loot from the Germans' plundered submarine missiles. The legend of what was down the mysterious lake only seemed to grow, and by the 50s, several amateur divers tried to get to the bottom of the lake. However, the dangerous environment led to the drowning of a pair of German scientists, making it clear that this would be no easy task. Intriguing reporter Wolfgang Loy decided to explore the mystery of Lake Toplitz after receiving several accounts of the sunken treasure. He and his crew searched the lake for about 2 weeks, and as they were about to give up, they saw a box in the dead of night. After carefully extracting the box, the rest of the world opened it to find millions of counterfeit 5B notes, which proved to be the largest counterfeiting operation in history. The Germans sought to turn the tide of the war in their favor by flooding the country with millions of these counterfeit notes, bringing the British economy to its knees. The logic behind this plan was that the British would eventually have to bow to the might of the Third Reich, dubbed Operation Bernhard. The German military rounded up all the Jewish counterfeits they could find in their concentration camps to make this scheme work. After figuring out that the £5 note was the easiest one to counterfeit, the Germans went to work making millions upon millions of these notes. They declared them the most dangerous forgeries they had ever seen, and the British economy began to fail. Before they could proceed with plans to flood England with these notes, the Germans were forced to accept that they were losing the war. The destruction of the counterfeit notes proved to be easier said than done, and the SS officers took as many boxes of fake money as possible to Lake Toplitz. They dumped the boxes until it was safe for them to retrieve the box. People like Ida Weisenbacher are convinced that the SS officers dumped some gold along with the fake money, but there has been no conclusive proof that this is true. People have been prevented from diving down the bottom of Lake Toplitz by the Austrian government after a young diver drowned back in the 60s. The mystery of what really lies at the bottom of Lake Toplitz persists, and it is possible that one day we will be able to find the gold believed to be at the bottom of Lake Toplitz. Fort Knox, a symbol of America's financial power and security, is not just a vault, but also a symbol of power, mystery, and secrecy. It was established during the Great Depression in the early 1930s when the United States was on the brink of financial collapse. President Franklin D. Roosevelt nationalized the country's gold, outlawing private ownership of gold. In 1933, the U.S. Treasury had gathered an incredible 5,000 tons of gold, which would play a key role in pulling the country out of the Depression. Once the government acquired all the gold, it raised its official price from $20.67 to $35 per ounce, instantly doubling the value of the gold the government had just seized. This move was a stroke of genius, as it gave the U.S. Treasury a never-been-seen financial advantage. However, the secrecy surrounding the country's gold reserves and the power they represented set the stage for the creation of Fort Knox. Fort Knox was chosen for its ideal location far from the coast and protected by both the army and a highly secretive vault. People whispered of war in Europe during the 1930s, making it made sense to store America's wealth in a fortress far from any potential threat. Fort Knox wasn't just built for protection, it was built to send a message. Not only would it keep America's gold safe, but also serve as a symbol of the country's financial power. The vault was constructed with a level of secrecy and security that was and still is unprecedented. The story of Fort Knox goes beyond just a shiny metal hidden away behind a fortress. It is a symbol of power, mystery, and secrecy, and the U.S. government went to such lengths to protect what's hidden within. Fort Knox, a U.S. military base in Kentucky, has never been fully audited. The last official audit was conducted in 1953, and over 70 years have passed since then. The U.S. government has refused to allow independent inspection of the vault, raising questions about its contents and the reasons behind its secrecy. Some believe that the vault holds a treasure, secret government documents, plans for future wars, national secrets, or even a mysterious book that some claim holds the true history of the United States. Some experts argue that the U.S. government is intentionally keeping the gold price high for financial reasons, as the value of gold determines the worth of the dollar. If the world knew the real amount of gold in Fort Knox, it could potentially collapse the global financial system. The secrecy surrounding Fort Knox might be more about maintaining economic stability than about physical security. The location of Fort Knox may be tied to something even older, with its surrounding caves once used to hide valuables such as gold, silver, and other items by pirates and early settlers. Some believe that Fort Knox was deliberately built on land that had once housed treasure hidden away by Jonathan Swift, a mysterious figure who played a role in early American history. The idea that gold is the ultimate form of currency is not just a belief, it's a well-guarded secret. The world's military still relies on gold coins for survival kits far more than paper currency. However, if the gold at Fort Knox is just the nation's treasure, why all the secrecy? Rumors have long circulated that the gold at Fort Knox might be more myth than reality. Official Treasury records state that Fort Knox holds 47.3 million troy ounces of gold, making it the largest gold reserve in the world. However, the lack of transparency raises more questions than answers. The lack of audits and public inspections raises more questions than answers, as there is a level of secrecy that goes beyond security to control over the nation's wealth, economy, and history itself. Ultimately, the question remains, is there really gold at Fort Knox? If so, why are there no audits? What else is hidden away inside the vault? And what could be the true cost of uncovering the shocking truth behind America's most secure building?